Okay, it's time.
So thank you for joining us. Now let's get the show on the road where the voters are. Earlier this week, the Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, released the final list of voters. And that means that this time, people have really turned out, people have registered, and people are ready to vote. I hope. INEC tells us that there are 93.4 million eligible voters. Of that, well, we'll talk about the breakdown later, how they are in terms of the regions
and states.
Yes. But to look at this with us this morning is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Suleiman Arigbabu, Executive Secretary, Header Resource Center. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you with us again. We also have Research Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Lagos, Dr. Kayode Ishuola. Good morning.
Good morning.
They both are with us in our studio in Lagos, and we have joining us from our studio in Abuja, Executive Director, Operation Nigeria, Ezinwa Mwagu. Good morning.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Exactly. So, Mr. Arigbabu, 93.4 million eligible voters. The Northwest has the largest figure of 22.2 million. The Southwest has 16.2 million. North Central, 13.3. Northeast, 12.5. Of course, we'll come to, other areas. What does this mean to you? 93.4 million of us have registered and all seem ready to come out and vote on election day.
I like the way you ended. They all seem ready to come out and vote because in 2019 we had 84 million, and how many of that population came out to vote? Voter apathy is still a huge problem for us. So 93 million plus. If you look at the difference between 2015 and 2019, it looks like less number of people actually joined the voting population. So that's a problem we need to understand what happened with. But yes, if you have 93 million eligible voters who have registered, though not all have collected their PVC, which is another problem, you will then expect that when we go to the polls, we should be having something close to 50%, preferably more, because we are in a democracy. But it hasn't been like that for us. The experience hasn't been like that in the last elections. We are hopeful, though, that there's been a lot of awareness about the 2023 election. There's been a lot of postulations about its importance for Nigeria. And then, of course, there's also been, let me say, hopefully, renewal of voters' confidence because of the reforms that INEC has been taking up. So we're hopeful that perhaps this will manifest in many more people coming out on the day of election. And of course, some of the things that will inform that will be the level of security going towards the election. So if people feel threatened in any way, it will be your life first before the country. But yes, 93 million. Let's pray that we are able to get 46 million to vote, and that would be fair for Nigeria to start from.
Doctor, your thoughts?
Well, I am perfectly in alignment with him. Having that figure does not automatically imply that such number will come and vote. Knowing fully well that people get PVCs here because of many factors. You want to open an account in the bank, you want to buy a SIM card.
So they just
I
need an
can
ID
tell
card.
you these are primary reasons the market women and all these people will get their PVCs. They use that card for many other things. So.
But doctor, the enthusiasm with which you see young people rushing out to collect their PVCs and actually bragging that they have their PVCs and telling guys, I mean girls telling guys who don't have PVCs to not even talk to them. Where's your PVC, man? You want to talk to me? Here's mine.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be it wasn't going to be in the absolute sense. I mean, this dimension to it is also real, but it's more dramatic than real.
Okay,
You know?
talking about the reality, just before we go to Mr. Nwagu in Abuja, he's speak to the regional divide, so to speak. On the one hand, the highest block of voters are in the Northwest. And I think second to that is Southwest.
Yes.
But the highest number of votes in one state is in Lagos, second to Kano. Is that any, I mean, speaking figures, is there something of any significance?
I think it's expected. If you go by the idea of democracy and what it is, you talk about number, you talk about perception, you talk about civilization, you talk about education. People must be educated, not going to school, I mean. They must be civilized, they must be aware before they cling into the system called democracy. So you know that the largest cities in Nigeria are Lagos and Kano. We still argue the population till tomorrow. So I am personally not surprised that those two large figures are out from these two states. It's expected, in my view.
Unfortunately, Lagos don't turn out well in the past. Let's hope things will change. The voting population, the actual voters in Lagos have been kind of abysmal. You know, compared to, it's not like Kano also get 50%.
You mean those who ultimately vote?
Ultimately vote.
On the average, for one of, I mean, INEC figures tells us that on the average, over the years, I don't know if we've ever gotten up to 40% of voters to come out.
None that I can remember.
So on the average, we've had
27, 30 million in the neighborhood of that.
You know, the percentage of voters over the years.
Actual voters.
And it would seem like only when the more number of voters we have, the more the percentage of voters that remain the same or drop. Two blocks particularly that I'd like you to speak with, gentlemen, and soon we'll get to Mr. Nwagu because we understand we need to do some things there. Number one, we heard from INEC, I think it was on this very same program, I don't know if anyone remembers, when we were having the Abuja municipal elections. The INEC spokesperson said to us that, look, as far as they know, the elites don't come out to vote in Abuja. And it would seem like it's a general thing. Then we have a median age in Nigeria of 18.1. That's the median age in Nigeria today. So we're about the youngest country in the world, it would seem. So one is wondering of what relevance is, first of all, speak to the first one, which is the quantum of elites that do not come out to vote, even though they have all the information about every single one of the voters.
Well, it's true. It's unfortunate. So the ongoing PVC collection, my organization is monitoring, observing the process, and in some states, and I can speak for Lagos here, where I've done most of my observation and parts of Oyo State. And the areas where you go to, and there is a very low turnout, is where the elites are living. And then I go to some areas and people are agitated, they want their PVC, there are so many on the queue. You go to some places in Itire, in Ijesha, and they tell you, oh, since we brought it to the world, we have given out 400, 500, this morning 200 people have come to collect their PVC. And then you go to some other neighborhoods, and they have seen 20 for a whole day. So it's an elite thing, and that elite apathy needs to, well, I'm hoping again that
But what's
2023
responsible
awareness.
for that?
So the elites, it's unfortunate. It's lack of I would say self-interest, enough of self-interest.
Anyway, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
We'll come back to you,
Mr. Mwago, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Great. Now, first of all, let me get your thoughts about 93.4 million eligible voters in Nigeria. Are you therefore expecting something like 70 million of us to turn out to vote because there are now 93 who are eligible? 93 million?
Well, I just think that we didn't add, what we added to the voter register will be in the neighborhood of 12 million people. 12, 13 million people thereabouts. So if that is what it is, in a population that is said to be 200 million people, and half of that will be adults, it just shows you, for instance, the attitude of people to democracy generally, and not just in Nigeria. People are questioning whether democracy works for them, or that huge debate is on even in the social sciences as we speak. But it means nothing in Nigeria. Like Mr. Ariwagu said, you've not had, and the professor, you've not had anything close to 40% turnout in any general election in Nigeria. So the excitement that we feel is palpable, but I hope it translates into people coming out to vote. And once that happens, if you get 52 this time, 60, 52, 53, 54, that'll be fine. But that 93.4% voter, registration is for me not even anything significant that we can be overtly excited about in terms of what it will mean. And I listened to you about youth turnout for voter registration and all the rest of them. Reality is that there's a lot of drama around election. Election is a festival, if you like, and people just engage in that festival. But the real business of determining who governs us is a much more serious business, and a lot of people are not yet connected to it. The PVC, I often say, is superior to the ATM. And the cost of bread, the cost of electricity, the cost of education, the cost of housing, good roads are all tied to what we do with that card. And a lot of people have not put that meaning to it. If we do, then perhaps the excitement that we feel will be real. But also underscoring that the fact that election is not compulsory in our country. People have to be persuaded. Indeed, sometimes people even have to be paid to come and exercise that citizen duty. So if they have to be persuaded, if they have to be paid, if they have to be cajoled, if they have to be, it means that they have not connected yet what it means for leadership recruitment and their well-being. And for the elites that you are talking about, is a class that's constantly subverts its own enlightened self-interest. There was an experiment that INEC did in somewhere in I think is Lekki, Ibeju-Lekki or something. There was a runoff election that took place there. INEC decided that it was not going to shut down as we normally do, and it still recorded less than 5% turnout. So the analysis of the elections, all the conversations on Twitter and the rest of them, at the end of the day will mean nothing if it does not turn to reality. And for those of us who are organizers ordinarily, I remember we were having a protest in Abuja, and online, a lot of people were getting to me and saying, oh, we're going to be there in the morning, and you just sign me in. The online, it was buzzing and buzzing. And then on the day of the protest, I was calling some of them. They said, oh, sorry, I just want to get something in the office and come. At the end of the day, many of those people who were excited, wanting to be part of that protest, didn't turn up. And that is what it is for election as well.
Oh dear. Mr. Aribabu, a lot has been said about the elections of 2023, and it didn't start now. It started a few years back, and the buzz is still on.
Yes.
The importance of 2023, make or mar. Don't you think that all that would have sunk into some of our heads and would be eager to come out and have a say in who rules this country?
Yeah, it is sinking. It's just what they manifest after the sinking in. So for some of the elites, after the sinking in is to get on the next flight once the election is closed and go out of the country till the elections is over. For some of them, is seal up the house.
Some have gone already.
Some have already gone, so that's the reality. But hopefully for majority of Nigerians, the sinking in is going to manifest in them coming out to exercise that franchise, because like Mr. Wagu rightly said, the PVC is more important than, even the international passport we carry, the ATM, the PVC is more important, because if you vote in the wrong people, even your international passport could become useless to you. So there is a lot of buzz. And we are hopeful that this will mean that many more people will see the reason to be part of the process. We added, after the INEC cleanup, it's just about 9 million plus that has been added to the voters register. But nonetheless, it is hopeful that many more people who have either to have their PVC but didn't use it this time around will come out to use it. So let's keep hope alive.
Doc, someone said that the elite are not very interested in this exercise because most of them are their own local governments. They provide their own water, they provide their own road, they do everything. So it doesn't really matter to them who is governor or who is president, because they don't feel that they have a governor. They don't feel that they have a president. They don't feel that the country is doing anything for them. So do you blame them for not showing interest?
Well, I will be subjective if I apportion blame to anybody. Election is part of political behavior, and rather than judge, explain what causes the behavior, and that's where we're going to. That position is not wrong. In fact, it is one of the narratives that we get if we go out there. But for me, much more importantly, I think the elites don't vote because, and that was insinuated by our colleagues in Abuja.
Mr. Wagu.
Yeah, Mr. Wagu, I'm sorry. Because primarily, they feel that democracy is not working for them. And that is the feeling you get across board from many of the people when you interview them. That's one. Two, the non-elites, so to say, who always, vote en masse, have probably other reasons for going out to vote on the days of election. If you are a bank manager, you sit in the comfort of your house, your wife is preparing sumptuous meal for you on the day of election, and it starts raining. You begin to ask yourself,
okay,
what am I going there to do?
Yeah.
But somebody who had been promised 15,000 naira for coming to vote, and that man is part of the wretched of the earth, whose government decides to pay 30,000 naira in 30 days. Not up to a bag of rice. So there's a clear distinction between the behavioral patterns here. One is going to vote because there is something he's going to collect from that voting. Another one is going to vote perhaps because it's just a ritual of the ballot box that he must do, as it were. Please.
On that,
okay.
My apologies. On that same issue.
Yeah.
But the elites have all the information. It's mostly the elites that all TV debates, all TV conversations with governors, with presidents, governorship candidates, presidential candidates. It's for them. So all the information is out there. In fact, a lot more money, a lot more resources are deployed to market, to educate the elites about who to vote for, who to not vote, what to expect from each of these people, than even to these other people that you talked about.
Something is technically wrong in the process. What election does is recruit your leader.
Employ, please use the word employ.
Employ your leader.
I love that word.
Now, once that leader is recruited or employed, what happens in the next 4 years? It becomes a case of atito shalowo ukubaba intiobo. That is why my
translate.
Well, I don't know how you want to put that.
It's like you already put the ring on someone's finger.
Yeah.
You remember who go come out.
Yeah. Put it in that language. So the perception is now you recruit the president is there, the governor is there. In the next 4 years, you don't have the structure to check
to sack them.
What that person is doing. For the elites to participate, the society, and I'm happy we are discussing this, especially in the presence of the civil society organizations who are mobilizing people. Election is a 3-leg thing when it comes to democracy. It's like coming to the university. You must sit your general exams to have your WAEC certificate or NECO. You must take JAMB. Then when you get to the university must ensure that the purpose of giving you that admission is achieved by giving you tests and exams every time. And the third leg is that if peradventure you do not do what you are supposed to do, you get expelled or rusticated. That is how every system works. Now, if you come back to election, what we do in Nigeria is just go and get PVC and vote and go to sleep. The other 2 legs, we don't do them. And there are structures for us to be doing them. We don't follow the structures. There is the National Complaints Commission. There is the National Orientation Commission. So to the extent that once you recruit a leader as governor, the 4 years mandate is certain. But if you adopt a pattern in which from the first policy statement, just a statement, and you make a statement and that statement does not go well with those who vote for you, they go to the street and insist, this must change.
It's like
if you do that culture, if you adopt that culture, then people will have
It sounds
confidence.
like you are asking us to go back to the parliamentary era because it would seem like that's
where that's most practical.
because it would seem like that's where that's
most practicable.
But Doc, I am. Do you not see any signs of us becoming more educated
politically
and understanding what you're talking about?
Well, maybe this is, again, I said, this is where we need to give ourselves the reorientation. The summary of what I've just said, if you take it, is that what voting does for you is to get the leader into the office. But election goes beyond voting. Unlike production is not complete until the goods get to the consumer. Election is not complete until you ensure that those who you voted in are monitored to do what they are supposed to do, and if they do not do it, then you revert. How do we get our society into this behavioral pattern?
As you said, we have the structures for
Civil
that.
society,
They're here, so the two of them.
they should help us. I think that's the missing link.
Mr. Wagu, so you heard him, and I believe that you have a thing or two to say about that. How we get to not only put people to the jobs, but to ensure that they get the jobs done. But before we go there, if you don't mind, I'd like you to kind of speak to us about the various divisions of political education that we ought to have. In the demographies, concerning these voters, where the voters are, there are students, there are artisans, there are businessmen and women, there are farmers, there are traders, there are all kinds of people. There are bankers, accountants, engineers, all of them within this basket of 93.4 million, which, by the way, the previous voter register had about 84 point something, about 84 million, and now we have 93 plus. That sounds like something in the region of a little over 9 million people have been added to the voting block. So in all of these baskets of 93.4 million that INEC says we have in the kitty, what would you say, how should we be speaking to the various publics in this larger public? Should it be a generic conversation? Because unless we speak to the people where the voters are and how we can communicate with them, not just inform them, communicate with them, educate them, enlighten them, we're going to have the same results.
Well, I think first that there is a challenge of ignorance. There is another challenge of mischief. And that one is trying to wake up somebody who is sleeping. The person knows, but just doesn't want to do anything about that. So many times we insult the sensibility of our people that they do not know, or they are not educated enough, and that pride sometimes also comes to us. The reverse of that for me will be to say, is it possible that what we call campaigns now, which is more of razzmatazz, rituals, town halls that are if you like, already predetermined. Is it possible that we have Nigerian Medical Association, Nigerian Association of Midwives and Nurses and Midwives, physiotherapists, and the rest of the people who work in the health sector, who have an understanding of the challenge of the country in the health sector, organize and invite, not they being invited, not somebody talking to them, people who will get into government tomorrow and start telling you that they didn't know that the rot, how deep the rot is. As soon as you elect them in, the first thing they tell you is, oh, sorry, we didn't know the rot was this deep. Can you call the folks who have an understanding of the challenges in the education sector, in the health sector, in the transport sector, organizing their own? I thought that was the value that we would get from the long period of campaign, 5 months period of campaign that we have. But that opportunity is being missed. We have gone back to people going to Kaduna, Jos, and hiring stadiums of the same people. You go to people's houses, they have APC t-shirts, they have PDP t-shirts, they have NMPP t-shirts, they have Labour Party t-shirts in one house, meaning that it is the same people attending these rallies where nothing is said: music, dance, and drama. So if we continue the pattern that we're going, we will continue to have the same results.
Well, Mr. Nwagu, it speaks to the question that I asked. Just 1 second. Just 1 second, Mr. Nwagu. It speaks to the challenge of the question that I raised. Now, it's not that Nigerians are not educated or all of that. I'm asking actually about political education. You heard Dr. Ishola here say that, people just go and, vote, but election is a lot more than that. Election is a lot more than just voting. So it's that political education that I was asking about, because if people knew about these issues that you raised, I don't think that they will still just go for the drama and say, all I came here to do is what?
Well, I heard you clearly. I'm building up to the point where I'll get to the question that you asked. There's a lot that has gone on after elections. A lot of civil society organizations, the media, there are a lot of engagements that go on in terms of citizen mobilization to hold government accountable. First and foremost, the issue of budgets. I guess that a lot of people who live in Lagos Island who live in in Amac, for instance, do not know that you can't spend money in those local governments without a budget. And what is a budget? Budget is a document that details what government, whichever government, intends to do for you with your own resources. The government does not create money, it does not invent anything. It either taxes you or collects fines and all levies and all kinds of things that culminate into the resources. And it is that resources that they now say, look, in 1 year we are going to build 2 schools, we are going to build primary health care. It is entailed in a document. The illiteracy of the elite is that they don't care about that document. They don't go for it. They don't want to interrogate it. And so you can find that things roll back from 2018, 2019, and it's not the fault of those who hold those documents. Because if you don't make a demand, there will not be supply. That's number one. When government wants to construct a road, it puts a board detailing the contractor, detailing the duration of the road, detailing the company that is going to handle that road, and sometimes with their phone number. Then they say duration is 2018. By 2022, the road is not completed. People who live in that environment, who ply that road, will not ever call that number and say, what is the reason why this road is not completed? So there is a citizen liturgy in terms of wanting to be educated to do the responsibility that is already provided for by even the system that they are supposed to oversight. So civil society is working intensely around budget tracking, budget implementation, and all of those things. And that is the relationship that government has with citizens.
Okay.
It's budget.
Okay.
So if we don't interrogate the budget as elites, not just for the ordinary people, then what is the challenge? In many places where we have gone to have this conversation, they say, the government, they have soldiers, they have police, you can't come close to them. And I said, when it comes to public good, we always hoist regime of excuses. If you were looking for a letter from a local government chairman for your son to join the army, you will find him wherever he is.
Exactly.
But
well, Mr. Wagu,
get the document.
Yeah.
Get the document that is the relationship between you and these people. We are laid back in that, and nobody is going to be blamed for that.
Well, at the end of the day, we're gonna have to blame ourselves.
It's not funded enough.
Absolutely, we're gonna have to blame ourselves if we don't do the right things right. Mr. Ribabu, I can't take my eyes away from the breakdowns. For instance, there are those who would point to various segments of the society, students, artisans, and all those things, who are part of this whole election process and all. And so one is wondering whether or not we are carrying them along. We have told them to go get their PVCs, and a sizable number have gone out to do that. For instance, by age groups between ages 18 and 34, there are 33.4 million voters. That's about 35.75% of all who are. Okay, no, that's 39 actually.
Yeah.
Distribution by age groups shows that 37 million, that's about 39.65%, are youths between ages 18 and 34. Next to that are middle-aged persons between 35 and 49. We asked them to go get their PVCs.
Yeah.
They have gotten their PVCs. As Dr. Ishola said, we've told them to vote. They have gotten the visas to vote. What next?
First, they should vote. That's the way to start from. They should select properly based on the things that affect their lives, and then they should vote. And then we can then take it further that after you have voted, do you just leave those who come into power, or do you have a way to hold them accountable?
Should we be telling them
really
that now?
That is part of the conversation now. But of course, like Mr. Wagu said, election has its razzmatazz and its carnival-like nature. So now everybody is for one candidate or the other. The voice of civil society is already even drowned, as it were, trying to tell people that beyond all of this partisan interest, it is about what should come after the elections. So it's not just that people promise you heaven and earth. It's about, will they be able to do these things? Are they fully aware of what it is that they are going into? So that conversation will continue right after the elections. We need to start then to hold political office holders accountable. And this is where the elite is lacking, because the elite has the powers to do it. I would expect that beyond strike and what have you, professional associations, NMA, ASU, what have you, can take either parliaments or ministers or duty bearers to court on certain things they failed to do.
But Serap does that.
So we need a lot more of that. Okay, so see, for instance, every National Assembly comes in and starts this jamboree of reviewing the Constitution. They devote billions of naira to it. It's not even so much about the money, but our time and hope that they waste. This National Assembly now is giving us excuses why it may not conclude the constitutional reform that they set up, and this happens recurrently. So we need to start now taking action, taking people to people.
Now, Dr. Shola, we started, Alera and I started this morning by looking at the number of ministries, departments, and agencies. You may not have caught that. And my position has always been, when you elect the president, sorry, let me use that word again. When you employ the president, you are employing him into, according to Mr. Ben Akwabueze's analysis, 943 ministries, departments, and agencies. So one office has 943, minimum 943 ministries, departments, and agencies as of 2 years ago. And added to that, 541 corporations, all owned by the federal government. In educating people where the voters are about whom to vote for, do you think when people are voting, they have this consideration?
I'm afraid no. That's our experience in Nigeria at present. I'm afraid no, they do not have. And that goes back to that very important question. After getting PVC, what next? You know, he said it. They must vote. I agree. They must vote. But again, added to that, while voting, what are the questions permeating your mind? Am I voting because it is the turn of my clan? Or I am voting because this political party has not been given the opportunity for the last 5 years, so it is the turn? Or I am voting because I put all yardsticks together and I have arrived at the conclusion that this is the man who has the capacity to run the affairs of my nation. If you go back to voters' behavior, I mean, in terms of psephology, what you see is that majority of our people who have PVCs now, and we are celebrating, are going to vote either because I am Yoruba, Igbo, or Hausa. I'm going to vote whether because Emiloko or is not the other one that's gone, or simply because they gave me money and it has been so nice. I mean, a politician came out to the public and said, I have served all of, I've been so nice to you, I put you in power. This is a payback time. If you go to the polling booth with your PVC, with the psychology of, oh, he's been nice to my uncle, he paid my daughter's school fees, therefore this is time to vote for him, it's a waste. So we must, again, like he said, we've been doing it, but we need to now know that this is where the work is. It is not enough to get PVC and celebrate the number. We have grown from 80 to 95. If we don't vote correctly for the right reason, it is what Fela called perambulation. We merely be perambulating. So we've been doing it at the level of civil society. We must commend them. But that is the real work. In fact, to me, if you have 15 million Nigerians who vote, and they vote wisely, I think it's better than having 100 million Nigerians who vote, but vote for the wrong reason. You know? That's the way I see it.
You want to?
Go ahead.
But Mr. Wagu, I'll take you back to that same question that I asked Dr. Ishola now. 943 ministries, departments, and agencies, 541 corporations, all owned by the federal government. And no, we'll come back to it with you. And, that is the person, one vote, one election, one vote employs more than 1,000 people into various offices all across the Federation for the president. For governors, something similar, maybe 500 MDAs at their various levels and corporations of the states. How do we communicate this reality to the people? Because political exigencies may not provide the dividends of democracy, of the jobs we employ people to do to them, if it's based on sentiments of alignment or affiliations as opposed to the realities that need to be confronted.
So you were talking about where the votes were. The votes from what has just been released, the bulk of it is in the Northwest and the North Central. But you look at the statistics of how well the people in those regions where you have the bulk of the votes are, it does not reflect in their voting strength. Having said that, hunger, poverty does not have tribal marks. That then means that this president, this governor, working with the National Assembly that employs, using your language, that employs these DGs, ministers, heads of parastatals, service the elite. They service the elite. Because when we say, oh, many of them they've become their own local governments, all of these MDAs that you refer to thrive on procurement and contracts. And who are those who do the contracts? As we speak today, government is no longer providing houses for the poor. But estates are mushrooming all over the country. Government is no longer funding public hospitals, but private universities, elite private hospitals are mushrooming all over the country. And the ones that were publicly built have been outsourced to the same private sector that the elite constitute. So when I said that the elite not voting is a subversion of their own enlightened self-interest, it's because they are the ones who benefit, really. The ordinary people do not benefit. So whether it's in the Northwest or even in Lagos, with all those phenomenal number of voters that you have, what is the life of the ordinary Lagosian? How is it different from the ordinary Nigerian who lives in Mbise, my hometown? So the challenge for me is that the philosophy, the ideology of the elites is to continue to undermine those things that ennoble us as a people. And that is the challenge that 2023 that we have to put on the front burner. That at the end of the day, in the last 40 years, the ideology of government has been one in which the ordinary people have not been put in the center stage. And so whether it's a PDP or APC or Labour Party, you just have to look at what are they thinking right now. What is the thought? So the votes are in Northwest, they are the demography is about young people, old, and the rest of them. How has this system served the enlightened self-interest of all these demographics? Okay. So we need to challenge, first and foremost, the idea of government. What is this government supposed to be doing for us? Our chapter 2 is very clear what it should do. And if every other government that comes takes from that chapter 2 to make health free for all, to make education free and compulsory, and provide houses for the poor, electricity, drugs in our hospitals, it it will not come to where are you from. Where are you from is not important. If I'm sick and I go to the hospital, I don't ask the doctor whether he's from Northwest or from Southwest. I don't ask him. I want to be treated. And so for me, therefore, is to say that the conversation about where the votes come from or where it doesn't come from, as important as it is, every vote in a democracy is important. Whether it's coming from the less populated areas or from the bigger populated areas, what is important is this government that we are going to be employing, what will it do? The 946 MDAs that you talk about, who do they service? Who do they work for? What do they do? And in whose interest do they exist?
The questions are endless, Mr. Wago. So let's take some last words now. Mr. Aribabu, how do we close?
Well, I think we're expecting a miracle, and I don't think a miracle will happen. I think that building Nigeria is still a long journey that we are on. I do not believe so much in the presidential system that we run. Let me put that on the table. I think Nigeria will do better if we go back to the parliamentary system. Now, most of the change that we require, we usually focus on the presidency, on the governors. They come and they say my social contract. The real people we should be having social contract with, the real people we should be having agenda for, are those gentlemen and ladies who are going to the state houses of assembly, the federal house of representatives, and the Senate. Because that is where the real change can happen. That is where we can change things that will significantly impact on who becomes the DG of this, who becomes the minister of this.
Interestingly,
if we don't control that area, we'll keep hoping for a miracle that is a long way from coming.
It's interesting that you didn't talk about the local government.
I think I like the declaration that we are expecting a miracle. Nigerians are expecting a miracle. But I can tell you, from what we have on ground now, across the political parties and their candidates, there will never be any miracle. Therefore, we are
in spite of the fact that we are a praying nation.
Yeah, we must pray and speak in tongues. And that's why our roads are good, our airports are fit. Keep praying, it's good for you. So, that miracle is not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Unfortunately, and this is sad, we are losing it again in 2023. It's clear, apparently. But that is not the end of the road. If we take into cognizance my declaration that eternal vigilance is the guarantee of freedom, and democracy is about freedom. Too bad we're going to lose it into 2023. But whoever comes in,
let's not go to the too bad part.
Let's wait.
Mr. Wago.
Well, I think that we should make 2023 a people-centered election. The only way we can do that is to re-engineer the conversation with the little time that we have. And thankful to Channels TV and a lot of other partners that are already centralizing the issue that concerns the people. Otherwise, we're just going to have elections. But elections in itself is a means, it's not the end. The end is about the how we improve the lives and conditions of our people. We will pray very, very hard. We are already praying. Many people are already in the beginning of this year praying. But I do know that countries that are doing very well are run sometimes even by people who don't believe in God. So hard work.
So
now
let's keep praying.
Pray and may eventually give us the results that we're looking for. And that hard work will only come by you coming out to vote, by you prioritizing the PVC and understand the value that it gives in the leadership employment process that is going to be coming up in 2023. And I wish us a beautiful election in 2023.
Mr. Ezenwa Wago, Executive Director, Operation Nigeria, who joined us from our studio in Abuja.
Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform. I don't know where that come from.
Oh, okay.
Partner for Electoral Reforms. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ezenwa. And we had with us in our studio in Lagos, Mr. Sulaiman Aribabu, Executive Secretary, Header Resource Center, and Dr. Kayode Rola,
Executive Research
of Political Science. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming to share your insights with us this morning.
Thank you.
Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.